Elias Mercer clutched his translator device as the massive transport ship docked at Celestial Arena, the floating coliseum where the Galactic Champion tournament would take place. As a xenolinguist from Earth's Interstellar Diplomatic Corps, his job was to ensure smooth communication during the event. He never imagined he'd become part of the spectacle. "Remind me again how I ended up on the contestant roster?" Elias asked his colleague, Dr. Vance, while adjusting his standard-issue Navy uniform that hung loosely on his lean frame. "Clerical error in the registration system," Vance chuckled. "By the time we noticed, changing it would have caused a diplomatic incident. Just stand in the selection ceremony, look professional, and you'll be heading back to observer status before dinner." The selection hall buzzed with energy as warriors from across the galaxy displayed their physiques and combat prowess. Compared to the hulking Dravik champions with their armored exoskeletons or the lithe, venomous Sylph fighters, Elias looked painfully ordinary, a slender human with glasses and dark curly hair. "The Venturi champion approaches," someone whispered as the crowd parted. Kalia Valnasir entered with the fluid grace of a predator. Standing nearly 7 feet tall with iridescent copper skin that caught the light with every movement, she commanded attention. Her silver eyes scanned the room with calculated precision, and the intricate battle markings along her arms told stories of countless victories. Unlike other Venturi with their elaborate armor, she wore a simple, fitted combat suit that emphasized her athletic build rather than concealed it. When the ceremonial horn sounded, Kalia and the other champions began to circle the candidates. By tradition, each warrior would select their companion for the tournament, someone who would provide support, strategy, and ultimately become their mate should they emerge victorious. Elias tried to make himself invisible as massive warriors and skilled fighters were selected one by one. He focused on his translator, pretending to be staff rather than a candidate. "You," a melodic yet commanding voice said above him. Elias looked up to find Kalia standing before him, her silver eyes studying him with curious intensity. "There must be some mistake," he said, straightening nervously. "I'm not actually." "I've made my selection," she announced, placing a ceremonial band around his wrist that glowed with bioluminescent light when it touched his skin. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. A Rolex warrior laughed openly. "The great Kalia Valnasir chooses a human twig? The Venturi must be desperate this cycle." Kalia's expression remained unchanged, though her eyes narrowed slightly. "I choose as I wish." As protocol dictated, Elias was escorted to Kalia's preparation chambers, a spacious suite filled with weapons and training equipment. "Why me?" he finally asked when they were alone. "I'm not a warrior. I'm not even supposed to be a candidate." Kalia circled him slowly. "Every champion chose brawn today. I chose a mind." She tapped his temple gently. "Your eyes, they observe. Calculate. While others displayed strength, you analyzed exits, weaknesses, patterns. That's just my training as a linguist," Elias explained. "Perhaps," she replied with the hint of a smile. "But I watched you decipher 5 different dialect variations in the arrival hall without your device. The Procyon ambassador's ceremonial greeting, you corrected his pronunciation before the translator caught it." Elias blinked in surprise. "You noticed that?" "I notice everything," she said, her voice softening. "In this tournament, the warriors who rely solely on strength always fall. I need someone who sees what others miss." She stepped closer, her scent reminiscent of cinnamon and lightning. "Together, we will be unstoppable." For the first time since arriving, Elias smiled. Perhaps this wasn't the diplomatic mission he had prepared for, but it was certainly becoming the most interesting one. The training chamber echoed with the rhythmic sounds of Kalia's combat practice. Her movements were a blur of precision and power as she dismantled 3 combat drones simultaneously. Elias sat cross-legged at the edge of the room, surrounded by holographic displays showing data on their upcoming opponents. The Dravik champion relies heavily on his right side, Elias noted, manipulating the projection to highlight patterns in the alien's fighting style. There's a 2-second vulnerability after he executes his signature hammer strike. Kalia paused, wiping perspiration from her copper brow. Show me again. Elias replayed the footage, his fingers dancing across the interface with practiced ease. See? Every sixth sequence, like clockwork. Impressive, Kalia said, approaching to study the footage. Most support companions focus only on massage techniques and mental fortification. Well, I'm not most companions, Elias replied with a wry smile. Besides, I'd probably break your back if I attempted a Venturi deep tissue massage. Kalia laughed, a melodic sound that surprised Elias with its warmth. In the 3 days since the selection, he discovered that beneath her warrior exterior was a quick wit and curious mind. Your species is physically unimpressive, yet you've survived countless potential extinction events, she observed, settling beside him. How? We adapt, Elias said simply. We observe, learn, and find creative solutions. Like you're doing now for me? Exactly. Though I never imagined applying these skills in a combat tournament. Their evening meals had become Elias's favorite time. Tonight, they shared traditional foods from their respective worlds, Venturi spiced protein cubes for Kalia and a reasonable approximation of pasta for him. The cultural exchange had evolved from formal to intimate over the days. Tell me about your homeworld, Elias asked, genuinely curious about the legendary huntress. Kalia's expression softened. Venturi Prime has twin suns and 3 moons. Our nights are never truly dark, always bathed in blue moonlight. Her voice took on a nostalgic quality. I come from the northern coast, where crystal cliffs meet violet seas. It sounds beautiful. It is. But I left young to begin my training. She hesitated. Few females choose the path of tournament champion. My family expected me to pursue genetic engineering like my mother's. Elias found himself captivated not just by her words but by the small vulnerability she revealed only to him. You defied expectations. As did you, linguist, she replied with a knowing look. No human has ever participated in this tournament, let alone as strategy companion to a Venturi champion. The air between them seemed to electrify as she moved closer. Your heart rate increases when we speak like this, she observed, her silver eyes reflecting the room's ambient light. Another human weakness, I'm afraid, Elias admitted. Not weakness. Honesty. Her hand reached out, fingers gently tracing his jawline. Your species fascinates me. So fragile physically, yet your minds, your emotions, so complex. When her fingers touched his skin, Elias felt a tingling sensation, the natural bioelectric current that Venturi produced. It was intimate in a way he hadn't anticipated. Tomorrow we face our first opponent, Kalia said softly. The Sylph champion is known for psychological warfare before physical combat even begins. I've been studying their cultural taboos and honor codes, Elias replied, trying to maintain professional focus despite their proximity. They're vulnerable to certain provocations. Always analyzing, she said with appreciation. But tonight, perhaps we should rest our minds. She took his hand, placing it against the markings on her forearm. These tell my story. Would you like to learn to read them? As Elias traced the intricate patterns on her skin, Kalia explained the meaning behind each marking: battles won, challenges overcome, honors earned. Her voice grew husky as his fingers moved along her arm, the bioelectric current between them intensifying. This latest marking remains incomplete, she said, indicating a pattern near her shoulder. What will complete it? Elias asked. Victory in this tournament. Her eyes locked with his. With you. The realization of what that meant, what they could become to each other if successful, hung between them, unspoken but undeniable. "Then we'd better make sure you win," Elias said with determination, reluctantly pulling his hand away to return to the strategic displays. "Let me show you what I've learned about the Sylph's weaknesses." Kalia smiled, a predator's satisfaction gleaming in her eyes. "We make a formidable team, Elias Mercer. Tomorrow, the galaxy will begin to understand why I chose you." As they worked late into the night, their shoulders touching while reviewing combat strategies, Elias realized he was no longer simply fulfilling an accidental role. He was becoming exactly what Kalia needed, a perfect complement to her strength, just as her confidence was becoming the anchor he never knew he sought. The celestial arena roared with the thunderous applause of thousands of spectators as Kalia circled her opponent, the venomous Sylph champion Nyx Vala. Elias watched from the companion's platform, his knuckles white as he gripped the railing. "Remember the pattern," he whispered, knowing Kalia could hear him through their neural link. She feints left before striking with her tail. Kalia gave an imperceptible nod, her body relaxed despite the danger. The Sylph lunged suddenly, her segmented tail arcing toward Kalia's throat. Instead of dodging backward as expected, Kalia stepped into the attack, precisely as they had practiced, catching the tail mid-strike and using the Sylph's momentum against her. The crowd gasped as the favored Sylph champion hit the arena floor with a resonant thud, temporarily stunned. Kalia seized the advantage, immobilizing her opponent with a precise pressure point technique Elias had discovered in ancient Venturi combat texts. "Victory to champion Kalia Valnasir," the announcer proclaimed as the arena erupted. Later, in their private quarters, the celebration was more intimate. Kalia lifted Elias off his feet in an exuberant embrace, her natural bioelectric field sending pleasurable waves across his skin. "Your strategy was flawless," she said, setting him down but keeping her hands on his shoulders. The Sylph never anticipated the counter-pattern. "We make a good team," Elias replied, flushed with both pride and the physical reaction to her touch. That night, their cultural exchange deepened. Kalia taught him the victory ritual of her people, a slow, deliberate dance that was part meditation, part celebration. As they moved together, her hands guiding him through the unfamiliar movements, the distinction between strategic partnership and something more intimate began to blur. On Venturi Prime, this ritual is often performed between potential mates, she explained, her voice lower than usual. It tests compatibility of movement, rhythm, and energy. As if to demonstrate, she intensified her bioelectric field, sending a surge of sensation through Elias that left him breathless. "And how are we doing on the compatibility test?" he managed to ask. Her silver eyes darkened. "Extraordinarily well." Their lips met in a kiss that began experimentally but quickly blazed into something urgent and consuming. The bioelectric current flowing between them intensified every touch, every sensation, until Elias could barely distinguish where his body ended and hers began. They explored each other with the same thoroughness they'd applied to studying their opponents, discovering differences in anatomy becoming a journey of pleasure rather than scientific curiosity. Kalia's copper skin glowed with bioluminescence in her arousal, illuminating their entwined forms as they moved together in perfect synchrony. Their victory celebration extended well into the night, transforming into something profound, a bond that transcended their different species and original purposes. Morning brought new challenges. As they entered the communal dining hall, hostile glares followed them. Their unexpected success had drawn attention, not all of it positive. "The human cheats," growled Thorax, the massive Dravik champion, loud enough for all to hear. "No true warrior would rely on tricks instead of strength." "Perhaps you fear what you cannot understand," Kalia replied coolly, placing a protective hand on Elias's shoulder. The Dravik's multiple eyes narrowed. "Or perhaps the great Kalia has grown soft, taking a mate before earning victory." Elias felt Kalia tense beside him. He placed a calming hand on her arm, his mind already analyzing the situation. "He's trying to provoke you before your match tomorrow," he murmured. Classic psychological warfare. But the Dravik's words had struck a nerve. Among tournament participants, physical intimacy before the final victory was considered taboo by many species, a distraction from the purity of combat. As they left the hall, Elias noticed several other champions and their companions whispering, their expressions ranging from disgust to amusement. "I've compromised your standing," he said once they were alone. Kalia's expression softened. "You've enhanced my strength in ways they cannot comprehend." She traced the patterns on her arm. "These markings celebrate victories, but what use is triumph without connection? Without meaning?" Her words resonated deeply with Elias, who had spent years studying communication while rarely experiencing true connection himself. "Still," he said pragmatically, "we should be prepared. They'll try to use this against us." His prediction proved accurate sooner than expected. That afternoon, while reviewing strategy for their next match, they discovered their private combat simulations had been tampered with, subtle changes that would have led Kalia into dangerous vulnerabilities had Elias not caught them. "We have enemies," Kalia observed grimly. Elias nodded, already formulating countermeasures. "But they've underestimated us both." He smiled, taking her hand. Again. The semi-final match loomed just hours away when Thorax, the Dravik champion, cornered Elias in the preparation chambers. "Did you enjoy deceiving her, human?" the massive alien rumbled, his exoskeletal armor clicking menacingly. Elias maintained his composure. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Your entry into this tournament was no clerical error," Thorax said with cruel satisfaction. "My companion accessed the registration systems. You deliberately entered yourself as a candidate, pursuing glory you could never earn through strength." Blood drained from Elias's face. The accusation was false, but how could he prove it? Before he could respond, a familiar voice cut through the tension. "Step away from my companion," Kalia commanded, her tone deadly quiet. Thorax retreated with a satisfied clicking of his mandibles. "Ask him about his deception, Venturi. Ask how the weakling manipulated his way into the selection ceremony." After the Dravik departed, the silence between them felt heavier than gravity. "Is it true?" Kalia finally asked. "No," Elias answered firmly. "It was genuinely an administrative error. I was assigned as a translator, not a candidate." Doubt flickered across her features. "Then why did you accept my selection rather than explaining immediately?" The question struck him like a physical blow. "I tried to tell you there was a mistake, but once you made your choice publicly." He hesitated. "And then I wanted to help you succeed. Or did you seek the prestige of being chosen by a Venturi champion?" Her voice carried an edge he'd never heard directed at him before. "Kalia," he said softly, reaching for her hand, but she pulled away. "The semi-finals begin in 2 hours. We will continue as planned." Her expression became unreadable, the warrior mask firmly back in place. The tournament must take priority. The distance between them felt insurmountable as they made final preparations. Their neural link, normally humming with shared thoughts and strategies, felt cold and mechanical. Elias focused entirely on the upcoming match against the Karelian champion, a fighter known for metamorphic abilities that made predicting his attacks nearly impossible. If he couldn't regain Kalia's trust personally, he would at least ensure her victory professionally. As Kalia entered the arena, Elias noticed something wrong in the environmental settings. The gravity modulation was subtly different from what had been announced, a sabotage that would affect Kalia's jumping capabilities. "The gravity's been tampered with," he transmitted through their link. "It's 4% higher than standard. Adjust your leaping trajectory accordingly." For a terrible moment, he feared she might ignore his warning, but her slight nod told him their professional bond remained intact, even if their personal one was damaged. The match began brutally, with the Karelian shifting forms rapidly, tentacles becoming blades, then hardened shields. Kalia fought magnificently but was clearly struggling with the manipulated gravity. While monitoring the match, Elias hacked into the arena's control systems, tracing the sabotage to its source. What he found stunned him, an elaborate betting scheme involving several tournament officials and the Galactic champion. They had manipulated multiple matches, not just targeting Kalia but corrupting the entire tournament. As Kalia took a punishing blow that sent her sliding across the arena floor, Elias made a decision. He transmitted everything he discovered directly to her neural link, alongside a new strategy to counter the Corellian's shifting abilities. Her eyes widened slightly as she processed the information while dodging another attack. Then, with renewed purpose, she implemented his suggestions perfectly, anticipating the Corellian's transformations and targeting the brief vulnerable moments between shifts. Her victory, when it came, was decisive. The crowd roared their approval as the Corellian yielded, unable to match Kalia's perfect blend of strength and strategy. Later, as tournament officials reviewed Elias's evidence of corruption, Kalia finally addressed him privately. "You could have withheld that information," she said quietly. "Used my doubt against me." "That's not who I am," he replied simply. She studied him with those silver eyes that seemed to see everything. "No, it isn't." She took his hand, placing it over the markings on her arm. "I was wrong to doubt you. Your strength has never been physical, it's here." She touched his temple, and here, her hand moved to his heart. "We still have the final match tomorrow," Elias reminded her, though he couldn't help leaning into her touch. "Yes," she agreed, the passion returning to her voice. "And after that, we have much to discuss about our future." The celestial arena had never been so crowded. News of the corruption scandal had spread throughout the galaxy, and now all eyes were on the final match between Kalia and Thorax, the Galactic champion implicated in the scheme. Despite being permitted to compete until proven guilty, Thorax faced a hostile crowd. His previous victories suddenly seemed suspect, while Kalia had become a symbol of integrity in the tournament. Elias watched her prepare with a calm focus that belied the stakes. Their bond had not only been restored but strengthened by the truth. The neural link between them pulsed with shared purpose and something deeper, a connection that transcended their partnership. "He'll be desperate," Elias cautioned as Kalia prepared to enter the arena. "The evidence against him is overwhelming. This match is his last chance to salvage his reputation." "Then he will be reckless," Kalia replied with predatory anticipation. "We can use that." Their strategy was elegant in its simplicity. Rather than meeting the Dravic's brute force directly, Kalia would redirect it, using his own strength against him while conserving her energy for precisely timed counterattacks. When the match began, Thorax charged with unexpected speed, his armored bulk belying his agility. Kalia seemed to dance around him, each movement calculated and efficient, guided by Elias's analysis of the Dravic's fighting patterns. "Left feint coming," Elias transmitted through their link. "He'll follow with a double strike to your midsection." Kalia moved exactly as predicted, avoiding the attack while positioning herself for a devastating counter. The crowd gasped as she struck a precise blow to a junction in the Dravic's exoskeleton, a vulnerability Elias had identified through countless hours of studying xenobiology. Thorax roared in pain and fury, his attacks becoming increasingly wild. Through their neural link, Elias felt Kalia's satisfaction as their strategy unfolded perfectly. The end came swiftly. Enraged beyond reason, Thorax attempted a forbidden grappling technique. Kalia, anticipating this from Elias's psychological profile of the Galactic, used his momentum to slam him into the arena floor with such precision that his exoskeleton cracked audibly. "Victory to champion Kalia Valnasir," the announcer proclaimed as the arena erupted in thunderous applause. The celebration ceremony was a blur of lights, speeches, and formal recognitions. As tournament victor, Kalia received honors from representatives of a dozen worlds. But it was only when they finally returned to their private quarters that the true significance of their achievement sank in. It's done, Elias said with a mixture of relief and wonder. You've accomplished everything you sought. Kalia approached him slowly, her silver eyes luminous with emotion. Not everything, she replied, taking his hands in hers. There is one tradition yet to fulfill. She guided his fingers to the incomplete marking on her shoulder. By custom, my chosen companion completes this pattern after victory. From a ceremonial case, she produced a bioluminescent ink and a delicate instrument. With reverent care, she showed him how to trace the final lines that would complete her victory marking, and symbolize their permanent bond. As Elias carefully added the finishing touches to the intricate pattern, the marking began to glow with the same copper-blue light that illuminated Kalia's skin when they made love. It's beautiful, he whispered, awed by the significance of what they'd shared. As are you, she replied, pulling him close. Not as others see beauty, perhaps. But with a strength I have come to value above all others. Their kiss deepened into something more primal, more consuming. The bioelectric current between them intensified as clothing was discarded and they celebrated their victory in the most intimate way possible, their bodies communicating in a language that required no translation. Later, as they lay entwined, Kalia traced lazy patterns on his chest. The tournament committee has offered me a permanent position training future champions, she said thoughtfully. Here, at the Celestial Arena. And Earth's diplomatic corps wants me back as their senior xenolinguist, Elias added. Though I've requested a posting that would allow me to remain in this sector. Kalia propped herself up on one elbow, studying him with those perceptive silver eyes. What if we created something new? A cultural exchange program, perhaps. Something that values both our strengths. Elias smiled, recognizing the brilliant strategy behind her suggestion. A way for us to build a life together while serving both our worlds. Precisely. Her copper skin glowed softly in the dim light. After all, if a Venturi warrior and a human linguist can find such harmony, perhaps our species have more to learn from each other than anyone suspected. As dawn broke over the celestial arena, they began planning their future, a partnership that would challenge perceptions throughout the galaxy and prove that true strength comes in many forms. The tournament had been merely the beginning of their journey together, one that would bridge worlds, cultures, and hearts. In Kalia, Elias had found someone who valued his mind above all else. And in Elias, Kalia had discovered that the most powerful weapon in her arsenal wasn't her combat prowess, but the bond they had forged together, a connection that transcended physical strength to touch something far more profound.